Settle down, boys. We're headed out to Manchester, England, as we have 2 title fights set to take place at the top of this huge UFC 304 card. Of course, we have all the best fighters in the world representing the UK scattered all throughout this card. In fact, 2 champions that are also in the top 10 pound for pound rankings. Okay, so this is a huge card for the UK. Now, unfortunately for you UK fans, the fights are taking place at 10 p.m. Eastern, which works out perfectly for us over here in the US, specifically us in the Eastern time zone. And we will be kicking off the Fight Companion at 10 p.m. Eastern. We will be in our zone. The first fight that we'll be jumping right into, of course, will be Bobby King Green versus Paddy Pimblett. I really hope all you guys join me for that Fight Companion. It's going to be the craziest one we've done yet. It's going to be interactive. If you guys want to hop on the show with me, make sure you guys have your mic and your cameras ready to go. And if we get this video to 500 likes, I will dress up as a red coat. I'll put on the wig and all that, the white wig, and I'll be sitting around putting on my English accent and all that. If you guys want to see that, like this video. Please subscribe to the channel. If you guys have not already, if you're just tuning in periodically to my channel here, please subscribe. It means a lot to me. I'm trying to run these numbers up. I'm almost about to hit that 10K mark, so it would mean the world to me if you guys could just hit that button there real quick. All right. And for those of you guys that want to work with me for my official targets for this card, do not hesitate to reach out to me. I am locked in for this event. There are some very solid spots to make money. One specifically, I know I'm going to cash in on big. If you want to work with me for my official place, just shoot me an email or a DM on Instagram or Twitter. Go follow me over there. I got it posted right below. Go check me out on social media, and I'm always there to be reached. And of course, a special shout out to BetUS. Remember, guys, if you sign up through the link in the description of this video to BetUS, you're going to get a 125% match on your first 3 deposits. And I will also send you guys over an additional gift. All right. It's a great time to do that for a card like this. You start off, make a big deposit, get a 125% match bonus. You're really working with some big money. Flip that account right there, and you wake up Sunday morning with a smile on your face. All right, guys, that's how it needs to be done, right?
The teller, the teller, the teller, the teller.
All right, guys, bear with me. We're kicking this thing off in the women's strawweight division. Shauna, Bannon, Mama B, taking on Elise Ardelean. Now, initially, Shauna Bannon was supposed to be taking on Ravina Oliveira. Oliveira had to pull out. In steps Elise Ardelean, who is a fighter that was supposed to be fighting on this upcoming season of Dana White's Contender Series. She's a fighter that actually has quite a bit of a following. She almost has 500,000 followers. She's kind of known for being a fighter that self-proclaims to have the biggest donkey donk in the fight game, and it's on full display here. We'll pull that up for you guys. But, you know, not a bad idea for her to have that OnlyFans thing going on. I heard she's making quite a bit of money doing it. I would have to imagine that she's not being paid a lot of money, at least at this point, for her fighting ability. For those of you guys that broke down tape on her, you guys know what I'm talking about. The skill level is not really there at this point in time. Now, she is a fun fighter to watch. She's exciting. She's aggressive. You know, I just watched one of her more recent fights, and it was actually it was quite entertaining, man. The fight against Jessica Monamine, excuse me there in the pronunciation. She eventually got to finish, but that was a fight that played out in an exciting fashion. They were going to war, but so many sloppy mistakes made throughout that entire fight by both fighters. Shauna Bannon is a fighter that was undefeated going into her UFC debut, which she did lose against Bruna, Brazil. It was somewhat of a close fight. 2 of the judges had it scored 29-28 to Bruna, Brazil. So Shauna did win one of those rounds on 2 of the judges' scorecards. The significant strikes and total strikes were quite close, but I don't know if that necessarily gave the right depiction of what that fight was. I thought Bruna Brazil was in control of that fight, and I was not that impressed with what I saw from Shauna Bannon. Shauna Bannon's 30 years old. She's not young, but just 6 pro fights, so we could expect to see some growth from her. I like the fact that Shauna Bannon was training for this date. Okay, it's taking place close to where she trains and all that. So she does have some things going for herself here. She has to be highly motivated to get the W, as again, she knew that this was the date she was going to be having a fight where she does not want to go 0-2 in the UFC. While on the other hand, Elise is taking this fight on short notice. She was initially planning for a different date. I could see Shauna having a little bit of a fire, a little bit of a bigger fire lit under her. I do like that aspect there for Shauna. And then when we're getting to the technical aspect of this matchup, Shauna Bannon has shown some flashes with her striking. You know, when I look at her highlight reel and some of her better fights, there are moments where you're watching her strike and you're like, okay, this girl kind of knows what she's doing there, throwing spinning attacks and whatnot. She's fluid on her feet. As you see, she's trained kickboxing from a younger age. While on the other hand, when I'm watching tape on Elise, she looks like she's a chick she really reminds me of a chick that's just been acting wild at the bar all throughout the night and is looking to either grab a guy at the bar or find a scrap, and it looked like she didn't find that guy to bring home, so she's starting to wing those punches and she's looking to pull hair and look to whip some chick up. That's kind of her style in my opinion, so that's going to lead me to side with Shauna Bannon. I also like the fact that Shauna has a 4-inch reach advantage here. She's a little bit of a taller, more rangy fighter, so I will side with Shauna Bannon to win this fight. I do not say it with an overwhelming amount of confidence. I want to be very clear there, and I don't have a betting line for this fight. This fight was just so newly made up until the point of when I'm recording this that I don't have a betting line. I'm expecting that Shauna's going to be a slight favorite here. I'm completely guessing. I'm expecting, let's see if this holds true. I'm going to say Shauna Bannon opens up like around a -145 or something like that, but I don't expect her to be a massive favorite here. I don't. Just based on the fact that Elise is a very aggressive fighter, and Shauna hasn't shown too much to us, and just specifically in her UFC debut, she did not look impressive. So give me Shauna Bannon. Depending where the line opens up, I have this fight capped closely, so I would not be targeting Shauna Bannon at any type of steep odds, and the value may be on the dog regardless of who that dog is in this fight. And I will take Mama B to win this fight via decision, and a close one, a somewhat close fight. Up next, we go up to the light heavyweight division where we have Modestas Bukauskas taking on Marcin Prachnio. Now, let me tell you guys a little something about Marcin Prachnio. At one point in time, I had him on par to be working towards being the worst UFC fighter of all time. And that all kicked off with me watching him fight live in Orlando, where he made his UFC debut against Sam Alvey and was counter knocked out in the first round. Okay. He then followed that up with 2 knockout losses in a row in the first round. In retrospect, I mean, the Magomed Ankalaev loss isn't the worst, as Ankalaev, in my opinion, is the best light heavyweight fighter in the world. Ankalaev will get the better of Alex Pereira. But time will tell, so don't worry. You guys, meet me in the comment section. Let me know what you think. After that loss, then he takes a loss to Mike Rodrigues in the first round. So while you're headed over to the comment section, let me know who, at this point in time, who he was set to be competing with to be the worst UFC fighter of all time, because I think it is Jerome Rivera, right? If you guys remember, I think I'm saying the name correctly, Jerome Rivera in the flyweight division. I think he was like 0-5 in the UFC, all knockout losses. Who else is challenging to be the worst UFC fighter of all time? Because at that point in time, Marcin Prachnio looked like he was going to be making some noise to make a run at that title. But then he completely flipped the script, went out there, got a decision victory over Khalil Rountree, who's a legit contender in this division, knocked out Isaac Villanueva, not a UFC caliber fighter, but went out there, did what he should have did. Lost to Felipe Lins, but from here, he was going win, loss, win, loss. He was still getting those occasional wins, right? He defeated William Knight and then just defeated Devin Clark in his last fight, which he actually looked very good. And in that fight, he showcased what he's very good at doing, and it's that he's a very active fighter, okay? He's landing 5.61 strikes per minute in the cage, and in the light heavyweight division, that could be a problem for a lot of guys. He's very active. He's using his footwork. He has good energy levels in there. And with a fighter like Modestas Bukauskas, who's a little bit more plotty, looking to land those heavy leg kicks, I mean, if Modestas doesn't land that one big strike, I have a hard time leaning towards his way to win a decision here. I think that the activity of Marcin Prachnio will favor him to sneak out another decision victory here. Now, one other issue that we definitely have to just remember is that Prachnio has defensive flaws in his game. Do not completely overlook the fact that he kicked his UFC career off 0-3. You don't completely change as a fighter, especially not in your mid-30s there. You don't just completely lose those defensive flaws. I mean, you could sharpen them up a little bit, but they are still there. I just feel that a lot of these fighters haven't really looked to take advantage of them, right? I mean, I was shocked that Vitor Petrino didn't get a knockout victory in that fight. I mean, he eventually did get a sub, but I thought Vitor Petrino was going to absolutely tee Marcin Prachnio's head off, but that wasn't the case. So, I mean, he is getting better there. Modestas Bukauskas will have a 4-inch reach advantage, both men the same height. Not overly worried about that. I'd rather have the activity, the footwork that Marcin will bring into the cage. And I am on Marcin Prachnio to win a decision here. I think that he is going to out-volume Modestas Bukauskas. Okay, so let's go take a look at the betting line and see what we're talking about here. Modestas Bukauskas over on BetUS, he is the favorite in this fight. He opened up as a minus 150, dipped the other way for a second, but it's actually going the other way now. He's a minus 155. So Marcin Prachnio is a plus 120 currently. A plus 125 as the line just moves. I think there's some value on that line potentially. It's a dangerous fight. It's a risky fight. I would rather be taking the fighter with the plus sign next to their name regardless. And in fact, if this fight was just an even pick 'em odd type of fight, I would still be leaning towards Prachnio's way. I like what I've seen from him in the cage as of recently, and I think he's going to be able to replicate what he did to an extent in that last fight against Devin Clark against Modestas Bukauskas. So we'll see how that one plays out. I say Prachnio wins this fight via decision. Over to the welterweight division, we have Sam Patterson taking on Kiefer Crosbie. Sam Patterson swapped weight classes in his last fight, right? He went up to the welterweight division after looking horrendous down in the lightweight division where he spent the majority of his career. He looked horrendous in that UFC debut where he was knocked out and brutally finished by Yanal Ashmaz. And, he's one of quite a few fighters that had a lot of hype behind them coming from Dana White's Contender Series and really dropped the ball in their debuts, but then bounced back and looked really good in their second fight in the octagon. He got that submission victory over Johan Lines in his second fight. That fight took place up in the welterweight division. I think he has to stick around in the welterweight division. The fact that he was cutting weight to go down to the lightweight division was crazy. I mean, this is a very rangy and long and lengthy type of dude. I mean, he's taking on Kiefer Crosbie here. Kiefer Crosbie, a more compact boxer. He's more of a boxing type of fighter. He has some decent power in his hands. He has 5 knockouts out of his 10 victories. So Sam Patterson will have to be on his P's and Q's here. He cannot be making any types of mistakes like he did in that UFC debut, having that head up on the center line, postured up like a serious giraffe. You want to talk about giraffe syndrome? I wish I could almost hit you guys with those church hums, if you guys know what I'm talking about. Man, when I see Sam Patterson come around the corner, you got to almost just hear those church bells ringing and just hear that. We're talking about literally the king of giraffe syndrome here, man. And but interestingly enough, this isn't a dude that's getting caught in guillotines and caught in chokes. This is a dude that is going out there and strangling his opposition. Okay, so this muscular, tight neck of Kiefer Crosbie will be threatened in this fight, and that's one of the reasons why I'm on Sam Patterson here. Is not only does Sam Patterson have good striking, he's athletic and he moves around pretty well. He could put a decent volume on you on the feet, but Sam Patterson has shown to have some solid jiu-jitsu skills. I think he's the more well-rounded mixed martial artist here. He has 6 submission victories out of his 11 wins. He has 4 knockouts. He's only gone to a decision once. He is a fight finisher. Kiefer Crosbie is there to be finished when he's in the cage. Okay, we saw that in his last fight. We faded him. I had an official play on Kevin Jousset. Loved that card there, man. In UFC 293, we absolutely crushed that fight card. That was the one where Strickland took the belt from Adesanya. But I think that was the first official play that we had on that card, and I remember being very stoked right off the rip of that card there. And Kiefer Crosbie's not a bad fighter, man. He has some professional boxing experience. I think that he's a little bit overlooked as a fighter. You take a look at his resume, he's 10-4. A lot of people kind of look at him as a fighter that's been in the shadows of a Conor McGregor, training out of SBG and whatnot. And maybe people wonder if he's just getting these opportunities based on who he hangs with and whatnot. But I don't think that's the case. I think that if Sam Patterson is slipping on the night, we may see Kiefer Crosbie go out there and crack him with a shot and knock him out. He has that type of power in his hands, and he has some boxing skills. But like I said, all in all, Sam Patterson is the better mixed martial artist here, and he just has to fight a defensive type of an affair here, play a defensive type of fight, and I think he could avoid that big shot and set up a jiu-jitsu finish as he closes the distance and works his way to the clinch. Maybe he'll swing around to the back, work a body lock or something like that, and before you know it, he's sinking some hooks in and he's on a rear naked choke on Kiefer. So give me Sam Patterson to get a submission victory. I'm going to say that he subs Kiefer Crosbie, gets the finish in this matchup here. Let's go take a look at the betting line and see what we're talking about. Sam Patterson is a big time favorite here, man. He opened up as a minus 300 on BetUS. He is now a minus 350. I'm not crazy about that line. That's a high line. As I just stated, Sam Patterson can be vulnerable to be cracked, like we saw in his UFC debut fight, and Kiefer Crosbie can crack. Okay, so that would keep me away from targeting Sam Patterson where this line's at. And this is more of a dog or pass type of fight, or this is a fight that I do think indeed we will be talking about on the prop edition for this card, because I smell unders, I smell finishes in a variety of ways. I don't see this fight going to the judges' scorecards. We either see a Patterson sub or a Kiefer Crosbie knockout. Okay, so just keep that in mind. That's what you'd be targeting in regards to this fight to try to find some value. We got some big-time middleweight action set to take place here. CLD, Christian, Leroy, Duncan, set to take on Gregory, Rodrigues. The winner of this fight is really going to be pressing themselves right into the top 15. At the very least, they're going to be right on the verge of breaking into the top 15, and you could see them set up with some huge opponents after this one, okay? And not to completely overlook this matchup, because both of them are facing a very dangerous man in the octagon on the night, but the winner of this is going to be, potentially setting themselves up with the fight with a dude like Joseph Pfeiffer or something like that, and things are going to get crazy for these fighters here. But I'm very high on both of them, and I'm excited to see who will be the victor. Christian Leroy Duncan really starting to get the ball rolling. He came into the UFC with a lot of hype behind him. You guys know I put that free play video. I was targeting him to get that victory over Dusko Todorovic, and I also included a knockout / TKO play in that free play video, which we hit on both of those. You guys remember we cashed nicely, but it didn't play out like I thought it was. Dusko Todorovic got injured within 2 minutes of the fight. He got injured, but we still cashed there. After that, CLD loses to Arman Petrosian. Okay, and I definitely was looking at him in a different light compared to how I was as he was entering the UFC, because I thought this is a fighter that has some serious potential. And I like the fact that he cleans some things up and he goes out there and gets 2 knockout victories in a row. The footwork was looking smooth. Went out there, knocked out Dennis Teolinen and Claudio Ribeiro. Okay, so now he has Gregory Rodrigues in front of him. Gregory Rodrigues, in my opinion, is a pretty solid step up compared to anybody that we just spoke of in regards to who CLD has fought thus far. Okay, and you could even run that back to the earlier part of his resume, fighting over there in Cage Warriors and all that. Gregory Rodrigues is the truth, okay? This dude brings in so many tools to the cage, okay? First and foremost, serious knockout power. Okay, this dude has the heart of a lion. Okay, there's no intimidating him, and this dude wants to go out there and put on a war. He could be up on the judges' scorecards, and he's still going out there looking to starch you. Okay, this is not a guy that, if you're having an off night, this is not a guy that you want to be in the cage with. I'm letting you guys know that right now. He has solid grappling skills. He's a very polished fighter. He surrounds himself with some of the best in the world. You guys know he's put in a lot of time over at Team Kill Cliff FC. And he's trained with a lot of solid talent throughout the years. So just understand that Gregory Rodrigues is the truth. Now, if there's one deficiency in his game, is that at times, as I said earlier, he could be a little bit over aggressive as he likes to hunt for those finishes, and he is prone to being counter KO'd. And we saw that on full display when he made his debut on Dana White's Contender Series, where it was Jordan Williams, the diabetic who couldn't even cut weight. He was essentially a welterweight fighter who countered Gregory Rodrigues. He was much smaller. Gregory Rodrigues was bullying him as long as that fight lasted, up until the point that he was countered, and eventually he was brutally KO'd. But Gregory Rodrigues went straight to work after that, went on a solid winning streak, getting victories and also knocking out dudes like Jun Young Park. Had a victory over Dusko Todorovic, who we just talked about, knocked out Josh Fremd over in LFA, a respectable fighter who has started to let his name be known in the fight game. I know he just came off a tough loss, but still. Now, Gregory Rodrigues did have a loss to Arman Petrosian, a common opponent who we just talked about. I thought Gregory Rodrigues won that fight, for sure. I really thought he won that fight. It was close. I thought that was a bad decision there, so he should have had another victory there. And really, the only loss we have to talk about was where he got counter KO'd by Bruno Ferreira, who's an absolute savage. All that dude does is go out there and knock his opponents out when he's winning fights, and that's what he did to Gregory Rodrigues. So we've seen Gregory starch twice since that debut at DWCS, but realistically, when he's in the cage, he's doing the starching, right? We just went out there, knocked out Dennis Thielinen and Brad Tavares, and that Tavares fight was crazy. The way he was aggressing in there, the way he grabbed the mic after the fight, the confidence, everything is just oozing out of Gregory Rodrigues right now. This dude is just seems like he's just filled with testosterone, and I say that in a positive way. I'm not saying anything in a negative sense like he's on something. I'm talking about natural testosterone. This dude's an animal. He's a savage. He's 32 years old. He's in his physical prime. He thinks he's the king of the jungle. I love that energy. You guys know I'm on Gregory Rodrigues to win this fight here. I have a great deal of respect for CLD. I think he'll be live to land a counter KO. He has solid footwork. He has a 4-inch reach advantage in the spot here. But I just think that Gregory Rodrigues is going to close the distance. He's going to be a man on a mission. And I've seen some signs from CLD when he's not the hammer and he's kind of being pressed a little bit and he's not really the man in the cage. I've seen some signs from him where he's not the same dude. He fights a little bit of a different type of style. He'll be a little bit more timid, and I could see Gregory Rodrigues kind of bringing that out of him. When he's looking across from Gregory and he's marching forward, I could see that being brought out of CLD once again. The Petrosian fight wasn't really the best look for him, and I think that Gregory Rodrigues is a better fighter than Petrosian, even though they had a very close fight and somehow Gregory lost it. But I already spoke on that. So give me Gregory Rodrigues to win this fight. Let's take a look at the betting line real quick. So what I'm seeing right now for Gregory Rodrigues, he is an underdog. All right, so Gregory Rodrigues is right around like a plus 115, and the comeback on CLD. CLD is the favorite. He's a minus 135 favorite. So Rodrigues is a dog here. I like that dog value. I really do. This is a close fight, but I would have been on Gregory Rodrigues even if he was around minus 130. That's actually where I have this fight capped. I think that Gregory Rodrigues should be like a minus 135. So the fact that he's the dog currently, we'll keep an eye on the line movement. I think there's some value there. And how do I see RoboCop getting the job done? It's hard to say he gets that finish just because we've never seen CLD finish thus far, and he has good head movement and good footwork, and he's hard to be hit at times. I think that I'm going to lean towards a decision victory for RoboCop, Gregory Rodrigues. I just think that CLD will be a little bit timid when he's hit, and he'll be out of harm's way. He won't be hit with that huge shot that gets him finished up. But I would not be surprised, obviously, if we see a knockout in this fight. Either way, I want to be clear there. The knockout's live. Either way, this is a fight where we could really see some action, depending on how a few moving parts move.
Michael Vick here at BetUS.com. Get it all. Huge bonuses, great odds, a race book, live in-game betting, and a casino. BetUS, my online sports book and casino.
Up to the heavyweight division, we got Michael Parkin taking on Łukasz Brzeski. Brzeski, early on, we had the church bells going and we had the humming going for Sam Patterson in regards to the GOAT status. When we're talking giraffe syndrome, when you're talking about Frankenstein syndrome, Łukasz Brzeski is on the Mount Rushmore. I'm not sure if you guys want me to hit you with that hum once again. I don't know if I should really debut that 2 times in the same video, but you guys let me know if you were digging that the first time around, and we'll start to incorporate that church type of hum as we talk about the goats of these type of accolades, whether it's giraffe syndrome, Frankenstein syndrome. But Brzeski has a bit of that, a stiff dude. On the other hand, Mick Parkin is a fighter that moves very fluidly for his size. Okay, I really believe that he has some solid striking skills, and ironically enough, look who he trains with, Tom Aspinall, who we will be talking about in a little bit. Tom Aspinall is the GOAT of I don't know what type of syndrome you want to call that, but I mean athleticism syndrome. I mean Tom Aspinall, with the size that he has and the way he moves, it's crazy. So those dudes are doing something right over there. I like the people that Parkin surrounds himself with in general, as you see him over there with Paul Craig and just some of the best fighters over there on that side of the pond. And I think that Parkin really has legitimate potential in this division. When you take into consideration he's just 28 years old, he's 9-0, no need to rush him. 28 years old in the heavyweight division is so young. He's just a baby. Okay, he's coming off that close decision victory against Muhammad Usman, which you guys know we had an official play in that. That was a nice cash. Before that, Chao Machado, Jamal Pogues, and Eduardo Neves were all victories that he strung off under the UFC banner, starting with that Dana White's Contender Series victory where he had the first round submission. Listen, 3 decisions in a row. The Jamal Pogues was a good showing of himself. Jamal Pogues is not an easy fighter to go out there and outpoint on the feet. All right, Jamal Pogues doesn't really. His name doesn't carry that much weight in the division, but if you really dissect him as a fighter, he's not an easy outing, man. He's athletic and he moves well on the feet, and he's hard to outpoint. And Parkin showed he has solid boxing skills. He'll work off that jab, and he could do a little bit of it all. Łukasz Brzeski is a fighter. He's a big dude. He can bring the fight to you at times. He's coming off a solid victory over Walter Walker, Johnny Walker's brother. We don't really know what Walter Walker is about. I mean, we really don't. We don't even know how much that victory, how much merit is in that victory, to be quite honest. And before that, he was knocked out by Waldo Cortez Acosta. He lost to Carl Williams and Martin Buday. Carl Williams dropped him, hurt him in that fight. Martin Buday just had a horrendous fight against an old man, Andrei Arlovsky. I just haven't been that impressed with Łukasz Brzeski. Maybe he hangs around in the UFC up in this heavyweight division, and he's a guy that we talk about periodically. But I'm not even so sure about that. Maybe we start to see him go on another losing streak and part ways with the UFC. I'm not really that high in what I've seen from him. And I think that Parkin can outstrike him on the feet. And I think he can even land heavy at times. If he really sits down in his shots, I could see him clipping Brzeski and dropping him or hurting him. It'll actually be Parkin that has the reach and height advantage, even though we always look at Brzeski with that Frankenstein syndrome and he's such a big dude. It's actually Parkin that has that length advantage. Parkin's a big boy, and I will be on Mick Parkin to win this fight. I think that he's better anywhere we want to go in regards to this fight. Anything you want to talk about, Parkin's a better striker, better grappler. I think that he'll be the better fighter overall. I do want to see Parkin continue to sharpen up his activity and his cardio. I want to see him start to come in and looking in better shape, and I want to see that activity look even better late in fights. As we saw that Usman fight. Usman was on the gas a little bit more so, but I thought Parkin was landing the cleaner strikes, which is always a good thing as well, though. Technically, he's very sound there, and I like Mick Parkin to win this fight here. He is currently a minus 210 on BetUS. I think that there's some value there. I like Mick Parkin really all the way up to like a minus 250, 260. I still wouldn't have a problem with that type of line if you were mixing in a parlay or whatever you were doing with it. And that's a fight that I could see us talking about on the prop edition, where we could talk about some serious method of victories that could be happening in that fight. I could see Parkin potentially getting a knockout. Over to the welterweight division, where we have Oban, Elliott taking on Preston, Parsons, two young up-and-coming fighters that worked their way into the UFC in very different ways. Oban Elliott came through Dana White's Contender Series. He fought in a very entertaining type of fight. He was hurt against Kike Brito, the Brazilian. He dug deep, and he eventually won that majority decision. Then now he's had his UFC debut against Val Woodburn, which he had a decision victory. On the other hand, though, the kind of under-the-radar Preston Parsons, he came into the UFC on a short notice matchup against Daniel Rodrigues, a proven veteran in the game, a very dangerous fighter. And he got hit with the shot. He got knocked out by D-Rod. But since that knockout loss, I feel that he's really settled in to the UFC, and in fact could arguably be on a 3-fight winning streak. That fight against Trevin Giles played out very closely. It was a split decision loss for him. But more importantly, victories over Matthew Semmelsberger and Evan Elder, which I have a good amount of respect for both of those names. Specifically Evan Elder. He's a fighter we just saw have another solid performance. You guys have heard me kind of talking about him being a fighter that's going to work his way to being a very established fighter in the UFC. He's a stud. So, and I thought Parsons looked very good in that fight. That was a very competitive fight, but you could tell it was a high level match when you were watching that. So Parsons brings in some solid physical abilities. He's a very strong dude. He has good wrestling. He could hold his own on the feet. He has been prone to being clipped with big shots, though, at times. Right? We already talked about the knockout loss that he took in his UFC debut. How about when he was knocked out by Mike Perry back in 2015 at the House of Fame 3? If you guys want to watch that fight, it's up on YouTube. You could pull it up. Mike Perry had the whole mohawk going on and all that, and Perry hurt him in that fight and finished him up. But since then, Parsons is winning the majority of the times that he steps down in the cage. Now, Oban Elliott will not be an easy outing Oban Elliott has some solid boxing skills, and I would not be shocked if Oban hurts him on the feet. He's very aggressive, and he does have some boxing skills, and he will throw them towards Preston Parsons' way. But all in all, man, if Preston Parsons can kind of weather the storm there and fight a defensive type of matchup and change levels and just kind of maybe even slow the pace of this fight down a little bit, as the fight progresses, he can look to pick up the pace a little bit more so, but maybe take a little bit of that oomph out of Elliott's, the pop in his shots, maybe hang on him a little bit in the first round or so. And I think that this fight could start to really veer towards Preston Parsons' way. I wanted to be on Elliott here, especially because he is a dog. We'll get to the betting line in a second. I wanted to be on Oban Elliott. I thought maybe he's a potential live dog, but the more that I dive into the tape, I just think that this is a spot where I want to be on Parsons. And another interesting fact too, I was expecting Parsons to be the bigger fighter for some reason. When I'm watching them in the cage, I thought Parsons looks to be the bigger fighter. But interestingly enough, it's Oban Elliott that has the 1 inch reach advantage. It's Oban Elliott that's an inch taller. I don't know why Parsons seems like he's kind of a big dude in there. He has some solid muscle mass on him. And I think that Parsons could be the better mixed martial artist on the night. And I favor Preston Parsons to win this fight. Now, it's interesting because Parsons has had a lot of success with his jiu-jitsu subbing guys, 9 submission victories out of his 11 wins, but Oban Elliott has never been subbed. He's never went to a decision either when he's losing a fight. He's been knocked out twice. You take a look at his 2 losses. He's been knocked out, and that's something that you have to keep an eye on too, because even in these recent wins, he's been getting clipped with shots. He's been getting hurt at times. And then if you want to go back to his 2 KO losses, which took place back in 2021 and 2020, against Mike Figlak and Modestas Flamines. Okay, so he's been knocked out against guys that are, Mike Figlak's not a bad fighter. He's in the UFC. He's proven to be a good fighter. Hasn't been active, but he's a dangerous dude. But Modestas Flamines, I don't know about that. I mean, if Flamines can go out there and do it, don't overlook the possibility that Parsons clips Oban with a shot. We've just seen Oban lacking defensively at times. So I'm not completely sold on the knockout victory for Parsons, but I think that element is there. It's a possibility that you have to keep an eye on. But I'm actually going to say that Parsons wins a decision. But I think I made that kind of clear, though. I would not be shocked if Parsons gets that knockout victory. So I'm on the fence there. But I do like being on the Parsons side of things here. He opened up as a -150. He's now a -170. So action coming his way. He actually touched -185 as well. So the line in agreement for what I'm seeing as well when I'm breaking down tape in these guys. I just think that Parsons a solid fighter, and I like him to go out there and get his hand raised at the end of the day. Here we go. You guys know it's not a UFC card taking place over in England if you don't have Molly the Meatball McCann on the fight card. And she seems to deliver when she fights over there. She's taking on Bruna, Brasil, a fighter that hasn't had a lot of success thus far, but I'm still kind of interested to tune in when she's in there. She kind of looks apart, and she has some striking abilities. Definitely seems to have some issues as far as her mental game goes, and we saw that on full display when she made her UFC debut against Denise Gomes, and she was looking lethargic out there. I think it had a lot to do with the UFC jitters. She eventually was knocked out in the second round. She did bounce back with a victory over Shauna Bannon, which was a fight we talked about earlier, and then she just dropped the fight to Loma Legbunmi, back to her losing ways there. Listen, she had that victory against McCann, that devastating knockout victory against McCann on Dana White's Contender Series. Now, listen, I know that McCann has a similar stature to Molly McCann, but Molly McCann is a completely different fighter than McCann. Molly McCann has real deal fight ending ability. She has very well above average power for the women's strawweight division. We've seen her go out there and knock girls out left and right. And then even in her last fight, she showed evolution in her grappling. I thought that was very impressive to go out there and get a submission, an armbar submission against Diana Belbita, who's a lower level fighter, but still coming off a fight where she was caught in an armbar to then bounce back with an armbar victory. I really like that. She's been working on her grappling. You see that she was over in Polaris. She had a competition in Polaris at Polaris 26, where she had a grappling victory over Julia Scardone. So I like the fact that she's active there. Listen, the Erin Blanchfield submission loss is not the worst look. Blanchfield is the real deal. Before that, knocking out my old girl Hannah Goldie, knocking out Luana Carolina. And it's the way that she's gone out there and has gotten knockouts too. the Luana Carolina fight was crazy, right? That was a spinning back elbow. Talked about her rising to the occasion over in the UK. That was a UK fight card, and she seems to thrive in these types of moments. And I would not be shocked if Molly McCann can clip Bruna Brasil with the shot here and really have her wobbling around the cage and have her hurt. I really think that that's a likely scenario, which isn't something that we're always saying in regards to a women's strawweight matchup. But I think that we can see Molly McCann get a knockout here. There's going to be a lot of nerves going for Bruna Brasil. I think it'll be similar to that UFC debut fight. I mean, this is a fight where the crowd is going to be roaring. This is a huge pay-per-view. This is a huge pay-per-view event, and Bruna's going to know that the world is watching, and the crowd's going to be letting her hear it. I mean, this girl has skills, but I see her coming up short. And but I will tell you this, right? As we get over to the betting line for this fight, Bruna Brasil is a big-time underdog. I think Molly McCann will jump to the line in a second, but she's right around like a minus 300 favorite. She's like a 3-1 favorite. That line is off as far as I'm concerned. That's a very risky line. Some things that Bruna does well is that she is a technical striker. She'll have that length advantage, and maybe she could potentially hold her own at range. We've also seen Molly McCann struggle down on the mat. But we talked about how she's been sharpening that up, and Bruna Brasil hasn't shown us too much in regards to the grappling. She is a striking first type of fighter. She has 2 subs throughout her professional career. So out of 14 professional fights, just 2 subs, and those submissions, it's been a while since we've seen her get any type of subs in the cage. You got to go all the way back to 2020 against a name that we won't even recognize in Giasa Valusa, and then she had another submission victory over Alexa Thinara. Okay, so I mean, not a lengthy resume of going out there and showing some nasty BJJ skills, which would be very important for her here in a matchup with Molly McCann. So I don't think that she brings in that real threat there. This fight's going to boil down to whether she can get the better of the striking exchanges and use her length and try to outpoint Molly McCann. That's how I have it going. But maybe she'll show some growth in her grappling as well, though. I say Molly McCann gets the job done. I say Molly McCann lands the heavier shots, and I think there is a realistic possibility that Molly McCann gets a knockout. It's so hard for me to sit here and say with a straight face that I got Molly McCann via knockout. It's really hard for me to say that in a women's strawweight matchup like this. God, you guys are going to make me do that right now. And you guys, I know you guys want that method of victory. You guys want to hear what it is going to be, and I'm going to say Molly McCann goes out there and gets the knockout over Bruna Brasil. I'm going to say she knocks her out, man, in the first or second round early on in this fight, as she has her wobbling around, and it's like a TKO type of stoppage, and the crowd's going crazy. The beers are flying in the stands. Why not? Let's go for it. Molly McCann via knockout. Stay away from that line. I don't even really want to push you guys towards betting the fight, even on the knockout. I mean, you got to get some serious value there. You got to get some real plus action, and I don't know if you're really going to find that. So just stay away from it, in my opinion. We head over to the featherweight division, where we have Nathaniel Wood set to face off with Daniel Pineda. These are 2 fighters that are at 2 completely different crossroads. Nathaniel Wood, 30 years old, and although Pineda is also coming into this fight off a loss, both fighters are coming in off a loss, Nathaniel Wood still has a lot of time to make noise in this division, and he still has aspirations to get a rank next to his name, and he may do that one day. If he gets his head on right, he has some solid skills. Daniel Pineda is 38 years old. I mean, he's really coming to the end of the road here. You got to tip your hat to Pineda. He's a wily veteran that's been around the block for a long time. He had an initial stint in the UFC a long time ago. Now, he bounced around to almost every single promotion you could think of, all the recognizable promotions out there. Remember, he made some big noise in the PFL, had 2 victories in one night, had 2 finishes over very respectable names, Jeremy Kennedy and Movlid Kabulov. The only issue there is he was on performance-enhancing drugs for those. But you got to give him credit. I mean, that led him to getting another opportunity in the UFC, which we'll get back to that in a second. I mean, this is a dude that's fought under the Fury FC banner, fought over in LFA, made some noise over at Bellator, fought under Legacy FC. I mean, seriously, if you think about almost all the recognizable promotions, he's put in some work over there, and he's had up and down type of performances, which leads us to this most recent stint that he's had in the UFC. He came in, knocked out Herbert Burns, the brother of Gilbert Burns, who at that time, Herbert Burns had a big victory on DWCS, then was 2-0 as he kicked off his UFC career. So that was a big win for him there. But then he showed some of the deficiencies in his game against Cub Swanson and Andre Fili. Remember, Andre Fili, that he was absolutely styling on Pineda, even though that was a no contest due to that eye poke. Fili was en route to finishing that fight, okay? In that fight, Pineda was throwing a lot of his patented heavy leg kicks. He's kind of plotty, and he will look to whip those heavy calf kicks. And if you're not on your P's and Q's, he can hurt you with those. But if you're a sharp fighter, like Cub Swanson was on that night, and like I believe Nathaniel Wood is, you'll start to see these types of fighters counter him when he's throwing those naked leg kicks, and you'll see them set up takedowns off them too. Like Cub Swanson was grabbing his legs, taking him down, getting on top of him, doing some damage. And if Nathaniel Wood gets you down on the mat, I mean, he has some nasty BJJ. He could finish you down there. I know he hasn't been finishing fights for the most part in the UFC, and as of recently, I believe his last 3 victories were all decision. I believe his last 6 fights all went to a decision. But Nathaniel Wood is a well-rounded fighter, and he does have fight finishing ability. Trust me on that. If you look at some of the work he did over in Cage Warriors, he was flatlining dudes with his hands. He's nasty with his jiu-jitsu. He could take your back, put you in a rear naked choke. So just don't completely overlook Nathaniel Wood getting a finish here. I am going to say I'm going to lean towards that decision victory for Nathaniel Wood. It's just when you got Nathaniel Wood at home with the crowd behind him and all of that, and Daniel Pineda, most importantly, being 38 years old, a guy that's popped for performance-enhancing drugs. You got to wonder how his body is holding up these days. And with these flaky type of performances, I think he's due for another L here. Just quite simply, he's coming off that loss against Bruce Leroy. Before that, he had that submission against Tucker Lutz, but Tucker Lutz on a 3-fight losing streak, he never really lived up to the hype that he once had coming off DWCS. And this fight kind of just screams the end of the road for Daniel Pineda. How about that? I think this is the last time we'll see him fighting in the UFC, and maybe the last time at that. He's older, but you never know with a fighter like him. He might head back over to the PFL or something like that. You never know what he's going to be looking to do. He really is a scrappy dude. Now, just to play devil's advocate real quick, if Pineda somehow rewinds the clock or pauses that clock and we see one of his vintage up performances, this is a fight that could play out closely. Okay, Nathaniel Wood is coming off a performance where he lost a fight against Muhammad Naimov, and that was a fight I think that he really should have went out there and took. And we saw Naimov just drop a fight to a very young fighter who came in on short notice, although I know that fighter is very promising and he's a hot prospect, but still Naimov is he's had his up and down performances, and I thought that was a fight that Nathaniel Wood should have went out there and took. He was on a 3-fight winning streak before that, defeating Andre Fili, Charles Jourdain, and Charles Rosa. The losses are to respectable opponents like Casey Kenny and John Dodson, man, the magician. Dodson was a true magician, and he handed Nathaniel Wood his first loss. If you guys remember, he knocked him out in that fight there. But Nathaniel Wood should come into this fight very motivated off that frustrating loss, which was a close one there. And I think that Nathaniel Wood handles business here. Like I said, I'm leaning towards the decision here. I'm going to say that Pineda throws a little bit of an offensive threat back, and that kind of leads Nathaniel Wood to taking the more cautious route that we see him take as of recently, right? So Wood opened up as a -450. He's now a -500. He's a 5-1 favorite. I'm going to recommend that you guys do not target this in any type of parlay. That line is extremely high. This could be a fight that we talk about as far as prop play. If we can get Nathaniel Wood on a sub or a finish, even probably getting a better line on maybe a KO/TKO. Pineda is there to be hit. He gets cracked, and once he gets cracked, he's the type of fighter that starts to break down. We've seen those type of performances from him. You start to hit him hard, he starts to get a little bit more lethargic and sloppy in there, and the car does break down. It pulls over to the side of the road and starts smoking and whatnot. Nathaniel Wood, like I said earlier on in his career, he has shown fight-ending ability. And just go over the numbers real quick. Out of his 19 victories here, 7 KOs, 5 subs. I mean, he gets his fair share of finishes. So even though he's coming off decision, his last couple victories were all decision. Fili, Jourdain, Rosa. And Castaneda too. His last 4 victories were all decision. Fighting respectable talent, and sometimes it's how it plays out, man. Maybe Nathaniel Wood has that fire lit under him. All right, so Nathaniel Wood to win this fight via decision. Hey guys, I just want to give you all a special thank you. I really appreciate all the support you guys give me for liking these videos, subscribing, catching me on my social media. Please do follow me on Instagram and Twitter. It's right below there. It means a lot to me, man. I'm grinding over here, and like I've been telling you, I'm really working on a lot of things behind the scenes, and I cannot wait for you guys to see the continued evolution. And you guys are really going to be enjoying what you're seeing in the next month or two. It's going to be way more interactive here. The fight companions, I'm going to have some other stuff coming at you during the week. A lot of live interactive type stuff. I cannot wait for you guys to see it. And if you could just hit me up with a subscribe, a like, a follow on social media, that little bit right there means the world to me, and I'll continue to grind over here, guys. Thank you. Here we go. One of the highlighted fights on this fight card. One of the many highlighted fights. We got some good ones to talk about coming up. Bobby King Green, the number 15th ranked lightweight fighter, taking on one of the more polarizing names in the fight game, Paddy Pimblett. I don't know why that's the case. Not to be a hater, you guys know I'm just being honest. I've been saying this from the beginning. I never understood why Paddy Pimblett got all this momentum and hype behind his name. Not to say that he's not an interesting dude and he's is worthy of some of it, but it's, in my opinion, his name and his stardom just blew up a lot more than I think it is deserving so, because it's just, he's not that exciting to me. He doesn't really get me clicking on his content. Like some of the more polarizing guys that have came through. I mean, not to compare him to a McGregor, but like some of the other guys that have really made noise. He's just, he is what he is. He's not, no shame towards Paddy. And I like the energy that he brought in his last fight. I will say that the energy that he brought to that Tony Ferguson fight actually made me gravitate towards him a little bit more so. If you remember, he had more of like a ruthless demeanor at the press conference and just the weigh-ins and all that. I like that version of Paddy. I like that version of him. But as far as his fighting abilities go, I know you're looking at all this green, and he's on a solid winning streak. Right now, he is on a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 fight winning streak, including being undefeated in the UFC at 1, 2, 3, 4, a 5 fight winning streak. I mean, you look at the level of opposition. First off, taking into consideration that Tony Ferguson was completely washed, and Ferguson had moments in that fight as Paddy was gassing out late. Jared Gordon clearly won that fight. That was a horrendous decision. And if you want to do some MMA math, you can definitely do some MMA math there. I don't have a problem with that, because Bobby Green, although that fight didn't last long, it looked like Bobby Green was moving on a little bit of a different wavelength than Gordon. Maybe that's a little bit of a reach, but I think Green was going to do good in that fight even before the headbutt. Paddy Pimblett was losing that fight to Gordon. So just if you want to throw some MMA math at yourself there, Paddy Pimblett needs to make sure that the cardio is sharp, because Bobby Green is a proven fighter. As the fight goes on late, I mean, this dude will still be in there with his hands low, and he will be popping you up. I mean, the last performance that Bobby Green just had was phenomenal. I know it was against a very aged fighter in Jim Miller, but Jim Miller came into that fight in great shape. That was, you know how motivated he was for that fight, to fight on the UFC 300 card after going on UFC 100, UFC 200, and UFC 300. Miller was ripped up. That was a phenomenal performance by King Green there, man. He was touching him up throughout that entire fight, bloodying him up, almost got finishes in that fight. And I don't know, man. I think that Bobby Green at 37 years old, he may be the best version of himself that we've ever seen from him. I know that doesn't really make sense, but I don't know, man. This dude is looking sharp in there. Yeah, the Jalen Turner was a tough one. Obviously, he took some serious damage, but before that, knocking out Grant Dawson, submitting Tony Ferguson. You want to talk about some MMA math there too, doing what you should do against an older, washed Ferguson. You need to go out there and finish him. But yeah, I mean, you take a look at the Dober knockout loss. That was brutal as well. I still do believe that Bobby Green is vulnerable to being devastatingly finished. We've seen those type of performance, but I don't see Paddy Pimblett as that type of dude. And just to again run through what he's been doing. The decision victory over Ferguson, a decision loss to Gordon. Yeah, he submitted Jordan Levitt, showing that he has those sub skills. But really, all these 3 finishes that he had to kick off his UFC career. The Luigi Vendramini fight, he was hurt in that fight. He was hurt. He showed defensive flaws in that fight with his head up all high, his hands kind of low at times. And Luigi eventually was caught after that, though, and he was finished. So I'll give Paddy credit there, but Kazula Vargas, nah, that's not doing it for me. I mean, the big standout victory is the fact that he went out there and made work of Jordan Levitt down on the mat, who is a nasty grappler in his own right. So I do like that. If Paddy's going to win this fight, I think that he needs to really work some magic down on the mat with his grappling. He needs to take advantage of Bobby Green down there, because if he sits and trades with Bobby Green throughout this fight, I think that Bobby Green's going to get the better of him. I think that he's going to out-volume him, and he's going to be too quick for him. And as the fight progresses longer and longer, I expect Bobby Green to be the fighter that is looking sharper. And just to throw some numbers at you that do correlate with the tape, Bobby Green has great activity in his fights, and so does Paddy. But look at Bobby Green at 6.45 strikes landed per minute, man. That's the type of fighter he is. If there's no finishes going on here, you have to expect Bobby Green to be putting that volume out there, which will help lead him to getting that decision victory, even in the hometown of Paddy's. I mean, I think that with the volume he puts out there, he could really stamp that. As far as what they absorb, almost identical from each fighter. As far as the grappling goes, Bobby Green with a 74% takedown defensive ratio in the cage, which is going to be crucial here. He needs to keep Paddy off of him. He doesn't want Paddy getting this fight down to the mat, trying to use some jiu-jitsu skills, maybe trying to flatten Bobby out and work a TKO or work a sub there. He does not want to be in that situation. All in all, he's been pretty damn good there. So just to run those numbers by you. And I think you guys know which way I'm about to go here. I am taking Bobby King Green to hand Paddy Pimblett his first UFC loss here. Okay. And Paddy Pimblett 21-3 as a pro, put in a lot of work over at Cage Warriors for some for time back in the day. And he has a good amount of experience, but I think it's time we're going to see Paddy get another L here. I'm serious. I think that Bobby is hitting on all cylinders. Let's take a look at this line, because this has been a very interesting betting line. On BetUS, Bobby Green opened up as a -175 favorite, and he is now a -120. Okay, so the 120 compared to the 110 of Paddy, so he's a very, very minuscule favorite. This fight is right now it's at pick'em odds. Okay, this is a pick'em fight where Paddy was a +145 dog to kick off the opening line there. That's where I think the line should be. So I find that interesting, but it's not really that surprising, because Paddy has the stardom. He has that big name, and people are throwing action on him. I bet you a lot of that action is coming from the UK. I bet you the UK is kind of spinning that line overall in all these books. And that's the only thing I could think of, because the more I break down tape on these guys, I definitely have Bobby Green being the superior fighter based on what I've seen from him in the cage. And I just don't know if Paddy's going to be able to put Bobby in a position where he can have Bobby have that catastrophic, TKO type of finish where he gets finished, he gets knocked out, which we've seen those periodically. But I don't see Paddy Pimblett doing that with his striking. I mean, he has some decent technical skills there. He'll pump the jab. He has some decent boxing skills, but that's not a lot of oomph in his shots. And Bobby Green's going to be dipping and dodging. So give me Bobby Green here. I'm going to say that Bobby Green gets a decision victory, and I'm going to say he bloodies Paddy up. I'm going to say that you could expect to see some blood in the cage on Paddy's face as this fight is going on. I think it's going to be a fun one. Give me King Green. And, hey, King, if you're watching, Teller's got love for you, bro. I know you're mad at the Teller right now, but it's all good, Bobby. Ranked featherweight action set to take place here. We got the number 6th ranked Arnold Allen taking on the number 10th ranked Giga Chikadze. Let's talk about Giga here for a second. He's coming into this fight once again off a very long layoff. Remember, going into his last fight against Bruce Leroy, he was on almost a 2-year layoff, which was understandable because he took a lot of damage against Calvin Kattar. Started that fight off decent. You could argue that he won that first round, but then it was all Kattar, second to the 5th bell. He was out ahead, even at range and striking. It was somewhat surprising to me at the time, but I like the way that he showed he can make a return to the cage and pick right back up. I thought he completely outclassed Bruce Leroy. And, I didn't pull up the judges' scorecards here, but I kind of have a remembrance of one of the judges doing something funny there. But if you remember that fight, Giga was well ahead in that fight. He was working his magic there. A very talented striker. Okay, Giga Chikadze is a fighter that came into MMA with that kickboxing background, had a lot of experience over in Glory. And, he eventually got an opportunity to fight on Dana White's Contender Series back in 2018 in one of the earlier seasons, and he was submitted. Okay, but you had to understand, he had limited amount of MMA experience. I believe at the time he was only 4-1. He may have only had 5 professional MMA fights. Okay, but he went over to the regional scene, got a couple victories, and then he got another opportunity to fight under the UFC banner, and he really got the ball rolling. Had some impressive victories too, man. Victories over Jamal Emmers, Omar Morales, knocked out Cub Swanson, knocked out Edson Barbosa. Not a lot of knockouts early on in his career, a lot of decision victories, but you also have to understand he was still more green as a complete MMA fighter, and I think that he's been a little bit hesitant, or he was a little bit more hesitant early on in his career because he was scared to be taken down. The better his footwork has gotten in the cage and the better his takedown defense has got, he started to really open up with his striking, and he definitely has the ability to finish you when he's in there. Now, Giga's he's not really a combination type of striker, if you ask me. I mean, he'll mix in a couple combinations here and there, but he kind of explodes with these nasty straight shots, right? You see that from him. While on the other hand, Arnold Allen, I would say he's more of a fluid type of boxer. I mean, he works the overall kickboxing game too. I mean, we've seen him land some nasty head kicks in the cage, but I would say the strength of Arnold Allen is his boxing skills, his head movement, and then fighting out of that southpaw stance. He has some good boxing, but I expect Giga to have the better striking here. And I actually expect this fight to take place on the feet. I think this is going to be the type of fight where they really trade. And maybe we see Arnold look to change levels and try to see if he can work something there. But I think that Giga's footwork will be pretty good, and I think he'll avoid those situations. And I think he can even make him pay if he gets sloppy trying to enter there. And all in all, I think that Giga is going to outpoint Arnold Allen in this fight. I think it's going to be a very close fight. So I don't give you this pick with an overwhelming amount of confidence. He's a tough fighter, and it's hard to judge Arnold too because he's coming off a couple losses, but they're against high-level fighters like Max Holloway and Movsar Evlovoyev, who's still undefeated. And before that, he was going out there getting all these victories in the UFC, basically just blossoming and growing up in the UFC right in front of our eyes. But let's be honest, I mean, especially if you take a look at how he kicked off his UFC career, a lot of low-level victories, names that you guys probably won't even remember. Yatsin Meza, if you guys remember him, Alan Omer, Makwan Amirkhani, okay, Mads Burnell, he's doing his thing over in the PFL, but okay, Jordan Rinaldi, an older Gilbert Melendez, an older Nick Lentz. Sadiq Yusuf is a fighter that I think that is starting to be known that he was a little bit overrated, I would say, because he was really looked up to at one point in time. But look at his resume as well. Look at his lower level victories and how he's looked in the big fights. The Dan Hooker one was a big one, but also note that Hooker had taken a lot of damage before that. He was been in wars and whatnot. Calvin Kattar was injured in that fight. We didn't get to see that fight really play out. So, I mean, we need to see more from Arnold Allen. He's still just 30 years old, has plenty of time to make a run in this division and try to work his way towards a title shot or something like that. I don't know if he'll ever get there. I just need to see a little bit more growth in his overall game. He's well-rounded, but I'm not overly impressed with anything. I know he's had his moments in there, but I mean, I'm not high enough on him to pick him here against Giga Chikadze, a lower-ranked fighter who's been inactive and who's going to Arnold Allen's home country there. So, I mean, that kind of says something, right? I like the footwork. I like the kickboxing skills of Giga, and I am going to say that Giga wins a decision here. I don't think he finds that knockout shot. Arnold Allen has been very durable throughout his career. Just 3 losses, all via decision. He's a tough dude. You guys know the stories about his dad being what do you call that? Like not a world's strongest man, one of those types of guys lifting heavy weights. He's got some solid genetics going on and whatnot. He's a durable dude, but I think that Giga can outpoint him in a 3-round fight. So yes, I am on Giga Chikadze, which, you know, I'm going against some of these English fighters here, man, in their home country, but give me Giga Chikadze. I like the way he looked in that bounce back fight against Bruce Leroy. So he is a big dog here. He opened up as a plus 185 on BetUS. He's now a plus 210. Okay, so this is a dog call here, man. Over a 2-1 underdog is Giga. I think that he's more than live to go out there and pull off an upset here. Okay, like I said earlier, I don't say it with an overwhelming amount of confidence, but this is a dog pick. I think the value is clearly on Giga, in my opinion. He keeps this fight standing, and he'll be whipping those body kicks. One thing you have to worry about a little bit, if the fight plays out somewhat closely, and even if you think that Giga's getting the better of the fight, you know, fighting in Arnold's backyard could be a problem as they go to the judges' scorecards. We'll see how that plays out, but give me Giga Chikadze to win a very close decision fight. Absolutely love this fight. I cannot wait for this fight. We will be rolling live on the Fight Companion, so you guys will be able to watch this with me. It's going to be fireworks. You guys know I love some high-level flyweight action. This fight carries a lot of weight. Look, as we take a look at the top of this division, Pantoja just defended the belt, of course, once again against Steve Erceg. If you ask me, the winner of this fight will be next for a title shot. If Muhammad Mokaev wins or Manil Kape wins, the winner of this will be next for a title shot. You can argue that Tatsuro Taira is right up there next as well, but Taira is the youngest out of all three of them, I do believe. I think he's even a little younger than Mokaev. And Mokaev, if he gets this victory over Kape, I would say it's even a bigger victory than Tatsuro's victory over Alex Perez that he just had. And Tatsuro could have one more fight. Maybe you match him up with Amir Albalzi or, I don't know, maybe a Royval or something like that. And that fight, that matchup will be so fun as well. But I think that's what's going to end up happening. Mark my words there. I think the winner of this fight will be fighting for the title against Pantoja next. And I think it's more than warranted, especially if Manil Kape wins this fight. I've been a big fan of the work that Manil's been putting in. So for those of you guys that know what fighters I gravitate towards or who are some of my favorite fighters in the fight game, Kape is definitely one of them. He's a showman. He delivers in the cage. I mean, this dude is lightning quick in there. But most importantly, I like the way he carries himself. I like the way he handled himself on that huge event that took place with Strickland and Adesanya headlining it. I love the way he handled himself at the press conference on the mic after the fight. I love his energy. This is a dude that's really been bringing in that crazy energy to his fights for a long time. If you remember, even when he fought, I think it was Ian McCall back in the day. Remember Ian McCall, a fighter that really should have, in my opinion, should have got a victory over Demetrius Johnson. I saw that fight live too. That was a fight when the flyweight division just started up in the UFC. So it's kind of interesting. All the love I always give to the flyweight division. I was there for the beginning fights in this division, the big crucial fights in this division. That fight with Ian McCall, Demetrius Johnson was extremely close. But Manil had a fight with him, if you guys remember, and he kind of slapped him at the press conference. They had a little beef there. But Manil he's a wild dude. I just listened to a podcast with him on the Jackson podcast with Rampage Jackson and whatnot. That's a podcast I've really found myself enjoying. And I like this dude's energy. I like his fighting ability. And I think that he is one of the, at this point, I don't even know if we call him a dark horse, because like I said, he wins his fight, he's next in line for the title, or for a title shot. So he's not really a dark horse, but if you want to call him that, I've been saying that for a while, he's a dark horse to snatch this belt up, man. This dude is lightning quick. Okay. I mean, good luck outstriking him. Good luck going tit for tat with him on the feet. And the issue here is that as Muhammad Mokaev relies heavily on taking his opposition down and trying to work the grappling, and it's not really the fighter that we thought he was going to be. If you remember, Mokaev bursted on the scene in his debut with a flying knee and all that over Cody Durden, but he's really relied heavily on his grappling, and Manil Kape has very good takedown defense and good footwork. And just to run you through what Kape has been doing in the cage. Remember now, his losses, I have to reiterate this, I know I've said this time and time again, but 2 split decision losses, right? He lost to Pantoja and Matheus Nicolau via split decision. Those were fights where he kind of finished those fights a little slower and he let those slip through his grasp. Those were fights he could have easily won. And since then, he's been on an absolute tear on a 4-fight winning streak. I know it's not against the highest level of competition, but trust me when I tell you, this dude moves differently. I'm telling you guys right now, he's going to give fighters problems in this division. All right. He's a more mature fighter, much more pro experience here. He's a much more of a physically mature fighter at 30 years old compared to Mokaev's 23. Listen, when Mokaev is 30 years old, he's going to be a whole different animal as well. All right. He's a very mature young fighter physically anyway at this point in time. But Mokaev needs to sharpen some things up because he's going to run into trouble when he's not able to consistently get those takedowns. And we've already seen that from him in some of his fights. Some of his fights have played out closely in certain spots where we all thought he was going to run through the opposition. So, I mean, don't get me wrong. He's had moments too where he's dug deep and he's went through turbulence and then still dug deep and got late finishes. Like he finished Tim late, finished Jafael Filho late, finished Malcolm Gordon late. Remember, Charles Johnson had him working throughout that entire fight. Charles Johnson took that fight on short notice, showing the G that Charles Johnson is always willing to step in on short notice and whatnot. But I am rolling with Manil Kape to win this fight. I think he stifles the takedown attempts from Mokaev, and I think that he lights him up on the feet. And I'm telling you right now, I wouldn't even be shocked if Manil Kape gets a knockout here or hurts Mokaev very bad in this fight, drops him, and maybe Mokaev can try to survive, but still solidifying rounds for Manil Kape. I like Manil Kape to win this fight. I'm telling you, I think he's the real deal. I think his time is now. Let's go take a look at the betting line. He is a slight underdog, okay? Opened up as a -125. some interesting movement. He was at even odds. Right now he's like at -105, a very slight underdog, but still on the underdog here once again for you guys. And I like him, man. I like Manil Cape. Telling you guys, this dude is the truth. If he can go out there and hand Muhammad Mokaev his first ever pro loss, that would say a lot, right? And Mokaev has a lengthy amateur resume as well. I mean, this dude doesn't lose fights. If Manil Cape can go out there and take this fight, it would really be a huge statement. And like I said, he'll be fighting for the belt next. And I want to see an urgency from Cape when he's in the cage. I need to see urgency from him. The only time we've seen him lose those big crucial fights sometimes is when he kind of slows down a bit, or he gets a little bit too he's too much on the counter shot, relying too much on counter strikes. He has to be aggressive here, make sure he solidifies rounds. Another thing I just want to say I like about Cape is he trains with the best of them, man. He's trained over at Extreme Couture for some time. He gets a lot of training in with some of these top Dagestani dudes, as I've been showing you. He's always shoulder to shoulder with these dudes now on IG, as I showed you Umar Nurmagomedov and Tager Ulanbekov and was Asad Nurmagomedov. I mean, he definitely gets in solid training with these dudes. And even Patchy Mix, you got Patchy Mix over here, shoulder to shoulder with him. And you heard him on the Jackson podcast. He talks about some of the work that he gets in. He's getting it in with the best. So I don't think that Muhammad Mokaev, this young stud, is going to be anything that he hasn't seen before. And he's already been in there with the champ. He's been in there with some of the top fighters in this division. All right. So give me Manil Cape to win. I'm going to say he wins decision, man, but I think that knockout is live. I'm telling you guys right now, that knockout is live.
This video is brought to you by BetUS Sportsbook and Casino.
So this is my main event. This is my most anticipated fight of the card. The rematch between the intern heavyweight champion Tom Aspinall and Curtis Blaydes. Just an absolute wrecking ball in Curtis Blaydes, right? This guy is a beast, right? He's never strapped that gold around his waist, man, but Curtis Blaydes has done a lot in the game. He only loses to the best. If you want to bring it up, I mean, you guys can hit the comment section below and let me know what you think about the last time these two men stepped into the cage with each other. Tom Aspinall with the fluke injury. Some people tried to say that Curtis Blaydes was getting the better of the striking exchanges as limited as that fight lasted. It's not true at all. I seen a video where they broke it down in slow motion. Blaydes wasn't even touching him. So if you guys want to pull that video up, you guys can see it for yourself. But Tom was not being touched at all. And listen, Tom Aspinall, let me just get on my soapbox here for a second. This dude is an absolute freak athlete. He's a freak animal. When you take into consideration his size, the way he moves, you take into consideration how well-rounded he is. This is a dude that's been training jiu-jitsu since he was a young kid. The jiu-jitsu skills are nasty. We've seen him go out there and toy with fighters before, man. Just as soon as the bell rings, he's just going out there finishing dudes within seconds, right? That's how he kicked his UFC career off. He's a freak. And the movement that he has, the agility mixed with the size, the power, the technical skills, the well-roundedness, I think I'm settling in here with Tom Aspinall being the best heavyweight fighter in the world right now. I think he will defeat John Jones. I know that's going to upset some of you guys. I would take him over John Jones all day. This is not Cyril Gane where you're just going to take him down and do that to him. In fact, Aspinall will do the same thing to Gane all day. If we ever see that fight, remember I told you guys we will see that same thing happen in seconds. Tom Aspinall, I think he will be the greatest heavyweight of all time in MMA. He'll be the greatest heavyweight mixed martial artist of all time when it's all said and done. I truly believe that. He's 31 years old. He has so much time to cement his legacy. When you take into considerations the heavyweight division, 31, he's just a spring chicken cracking out of his egg, and just needs to make sure that the fight IQ is sharp and just doesn't need to put himself in a lot of dangerous positions and scenarios, because he'll win all the fights that he's in there for, as long as he doesn't get clipped with the shot. Right, it's the heavyweight division. You can't be acting reckless in there, and as long as he gets to showcase his skills and lets these fights play out the right way, he'll always be the superior fighter in there, in my opinion. He's going to go out here and he's going to knock Curtis Blaydes out. That is saying a lot, because Curtis Blaydes is a very dangerous fighter. We saw what he just did against Almeida recently. But listen, even if Aspinall was to shoot a sloppy takedown like that and be in that type of position, those elbows would never be stopping Aspinall. Aspinall would roll out of that. He'd be rolling for a leg and whatnot. Almeida, you guys know I said Almeida is a fighter that doesn't really like to take damage. I feel very I feel very confident that that's the type of fighter that he is. Okay, so not to take anything away from Blaydes there. He was dropping some heavy shots, but that ain't finishing Tom Aspinall. Tom Aspinall will be the superior fighter. And how about this? They're putting some beers back together. I think this was right after the injury took place, possibly, but I think it was. And listen, I think you guys know which way I'm going here, man. I'm on Tom Aspinall. Curtis Blaydes has shown that he is vulnerable to being knocked out in all 4 of his losses. He has been knocked out. He has been brutally knocked out. I know some of you guys have seen some of the videos of him like kind of stuttering and seeming like he has CTE, but from what I've heard, that's not really the case. I have heard that he's always had that stutter. I've seen some people that are close to him say that, so I don't know what the case is there, but he was just brutally knocked out by Sergey Pavlovich in April of last year. Derek Lewis brutally knocked him out with that flying knee in 2021. Francis Ngannou knocked him out back in the day, and then the other knockout was that it was like a TKO, right, due to the doctor stoppage to the eye, but he was getting worked in that fight as well. I think that Blaydes is just a dude that's vulnerable to being finished. I really do. And that's not really I don't say it in a disrespectful way. I think that Blaydes is the type of fighter that looks to go out there and break you down, but he puts himself in vulnerable positions. You know, it's not like he has no chin or he's weak-minded. No, he's a savage, but he puts himself in positions where he can be finished, and he will be finished when he loses fights. And Tom Aspinall will finish you when he's defeating you. Okay, and real quick, just let's run through this Savage's resume. He's finished all of his wins in the UFC, or as a pro. Knocked out Sergey Pavlovich. That fight was so impressive the way he moved out there. Fight only lasted about a minute. Knocked out Marcin Tybura just over a minute. The Alexander Volkov submission. How impressive was that? Sergey Spivak knockout in the first round. What he did to Andrei Arlovsky. Do you remember that? In the second round there, just ran across there, submitted him. Knocked out Alan Budat, Collier. And this dude is, I cannot wait to watch him step down in the cage, man. It's like watching some type of predator animal, man. If you ask me, man, this guy is just something else. And I think, like I said, he has the potential to be the greatest heavyweight mixed martial artist all time. And he could represent England and the UK in a major way. So this is going to be a huge fight for him. But just know that Curtis Blaydes is a stud as well. Look at the betting line here, guys. Tom Aspinall is now a minus 390. Okay, open up as a minus 255 on BetUS. Looks like the masses and the action are in the people that are throwing action on this fight are in agreement with the teller here, man. Tom Aspinall. Now that line's getting a little out of hand, but I mean, even 4-1 odds, it's not like a sharp move there. But Tom Aspinall will get the victory here, and he will get the finish. So we'll see what kind of lines we could shop on that prop edition for this card to see what kind of finishing lines we can get there and unders. You guys want to work with me for my official plays for this card? This is a good one, guys. I'm telling you, I got some solid spots. Been putting in a crazy amount of tape work for this card. Reach out to me, man. I got my IG, my Twitter there below. I got my email scrolling below. Shoot me a message. I'll give you some further details, and let's win some money together. All right, guys, here we go. We got the main event. The welterweight championship of the world is on the line. We have the rematch between Leon Edwards and Belal Muhammad. Of course, these men have unfinished business. The first time these guys were in the cage together, we had that unfortunate eye poke. The fight had to be stopped, but that's led us to this point now, and there's a lot of momentum behind this fight. Belal Muhammad is on a crazy win streak right now. Let's go over the numbers here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. He's on a 9-fight winning streak. I'm not necessarily overly impressed with the level of competition, especially when you take into consideration Maia was very old, Thompson very old as well, even though he's still there. Vicente Luque, that dude, man, has been a shell of himself, and he was already that type of dude around that time. Brady, that was a huge victory that he had against Brady. I got to give him credit there, even though Brady talked about it on Joe Rogan about how he was mentally checked out before the fight even started. He said he was the first time he ever knew he was going to lose a fight before it started. He wasn't mentally there. You can't just do that, though. You can't just discredit somebody because that fighter just chooses to say something like that. So I do give Muhammad credit because Brady bounced back with a solid W, and he's the truth. Okay, now the Gilbert Burns W. Burns completely injures himself as soon as the fight started. He was one-armed, and Muhammad still, Muhammad, he can never find those finishes, right? He's like the modern-day Mike Bisping for all you old fans. Remember, everyone used to give Bisping a hard time because he was never getting finishes, even though he had his big moments here and there, knocked out Luke Rockhold, but all in all, just a point type of fighter. And 23-3. Muhammad has really cemented himself a solid legacy in the fight game, and he's a great fighter. He really is. Love him or hate him. I mean, he blocked me in IG. I'm not a fan of his. Back when I was a little bit more immature, a little bit younger, I was kind of teasing him in IG. He's blocking everybody. But you got to respect Muhammad's game, man, because he's a very disciplined dude. He's very religious. He's very disciplined. He surrounds himself with all the Dagestani dudes out there, Khabib and all those guys, and he brings in that type of discipline. And he's a problem, man. He's a problem. His game is really elevated. He's 36 years old, but I would say this is the prime version of Belal. But with that being said, Leon Edwards is a tough stylistic matchup for him, in my opinion. Leon Edwards' grappling and wrestling specifically has evolved more than any aspect of his game. He was always a very nasty striker, but I mean, you saw him even in the Colby fight, man. He was willing to engage in those wrestling scrambles. He even was getting the better of some of those situations. Even against Usman, he looked good. The heart that he showed when he snatched the belt from Usman in that first fight, I mean, that, you guys know, that was legendary. I do have question marks in regards to how he looks a little bit late in some of his fights. Remember when Nate Diaz cracked him, and Belal Muhammad is going to be a very conditioned fighter. Maybe but Muhammad can threaten him late in this fight with some volume and some of those sloppy hooks that Muhammad throws. Muhammad's always throwing these like kind of loopy hooks. Maybe he can catch him there, but I like Leon Edwards here specifically for the fact that he's a much more technical striker. His strikes just come so much more straight, and that mixed with the fact that he's fighting in his home country, he's going to have the crowd behind him. It's going to be really hard for Muhammad to sneak out that decision victory. So I think Muhammad really needs to find a finish here or somehow dominate with the grappling, but good luck doing that to Edwards, who has evolved there so much. And take a look at the resume here, man. If Edwards had one more win, these guys would have the exact same record. It's kind of crazy there. But yeah, I'll be honest with you guys. I almost did settle in on a Belal Muhammad pick, but the more and more I was diving into the fight tape and just going over everything, there's a lot of signs that point towards Leon Edwards here. And I think I got to be on the professional. I got to be professional here and make a professional pick, because Leon Edwards, 32 years old, more in his physical prime, fighting in his home country, that 2-inch reach advantage, the more straight technical striking, the evolution he's shown with his grappling. I don't think Muhammad's going to be able to stifle him down on the mat like that. And this fight just screams Edwards to me, unless he gets a little sloppy and tired late in this fight and Muhammad clips him and gets him in a similar situation to what Diaz had him in, but Muhammad actually capitalizes and gets him out of there. Okay, that's how I'm seeing this fight go down. So I say Leon Edwards will win a decision in this main event here. And I think that, if I'm being quite honest with you guys, I think that the tone is going to really drop as this fight starts to progress, especially coming off the Tom Aspinall first round knockout victory that he's going to have over Curtis Blaydes. And then the crowd's going to be a little bit worn out here. But Leon Edwards right now is a -215 favorite, opened up as a -200. Not a crazy amount of movement. He touched 220. Wouldn't even be surprised if it goes back up towards -200. I don't know. Maybe we see a little bit up and down here. This will be an interesting line. You got to monitor this one. Maybe people really start to hammer in on the champ, but I'm not sure if that's what's going to be the case. As far as betting goes, this one's a little tricky for me. Maybe I could find something when we go over the prop video. But as far as the money line goes, I don't really feel like coughing up 2-1 odds on Edwards, and I'm not crazy about taking Muhammad, but I will say the value lies on the dog here. I think the value is on Muhammad with the plus sign next to his name, especially when you're grabbing him at almost, let's see right now. You can grab almost on some of these books at +185. I mean, BetUS has him right now at +175. I mean, it's a little juicy there. He's coming in super motivated, in the best condition of his life, and he's a dog. But I still like Leon Edwards to win this fight via decision. All right, guys, that's going to wrap the card up. UFC 304. You guys better get ready for the fight companion, because I'm warning you now, it's going to be a fun one. It's going to be a crazy one. I'll be getting loose, man. I got the bell over here. We'll be jingling it off as we see finishes and as we cash in on our bets. And I really hope to see you guys joining me for that. It's going to be a blast. You guys know I got to leave you with some parting words. Something that hit me the other day as I was washing some dishes, something I used to think about a lot, something that maybe some of you younger dudes want to think about. Remorse is a real thing, man. And some of you guys may not understand it as much when you're younger, or some of the things you guys are doing. You might not think that you're going to care so much about it as you get older. But man, some of the things you do when you're younger will stick with you throughout your life, man. So just remember, when you're doing dirt, when you're doing negative things, although you might have that Teflon type of mindset about it, and you're able to do messed up things a little bit easier than other people, and you think, you're doing these things, you don't give a damn, you're doing this and that. I promise you guys, as you get older and as you mature and as your testosterone starts to drop, which is going to happen to all you guys, whether you like it or not, and as you just start to become an adult more and more, and you get older, man, that shit, it'll resonate in your mind and it will sit with you. So just remember, try to avoid doing dirt to other people, man. There's, I'm not going to say I'm the biggest believer in karma, so I'm not going to sit here and say all that, man, but it does come around to an extent, but it comes around regardless. I don't know if it's karma, but bad things come around regardless. Just try to do right, man. And you don't want to be an older dude and have a couple of things that you did that you're just wishing that you didn't do, and it just kind of cycles through your head, every couple months or years, you know what I mean? So just make sure you're doing the right thing out there. I'll leave you guys with that, man. Be a good person. I promise you, if you be a good person, the older you get, you'll be happier that you were, and you'll feel better about yourself, man. I'm telling you, whatever you do when you're younger, it will stick with you throughout your entire life, man. All right, guys. So I'll leave you with that. I hope you guys all enjoy the fight card. I wasn't trying to leave you guys on a down note, you know what I mean? Just trying to speak some wisdom to you guys out there, and I hope you guys are all enjoying life and you're happy out there, and I hope you guys all enjoy the fight card. And like I said, I hope you guys enjoy it with me. So I'll catch you on the Fight Companion. Signing out. Teller.
The teller.